So welcome to Liquid, How CFOs Outperform. I'm actually your guest host, Mike Richards. You might notice Tom over here is actually the real host, but I'm Mike Richards from the Treasury Career Corner. Tom?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I'm Tom Gavigan, host of Liquid and SVP of our Global Product and Solutions team here at Kyriba.
So, as Tom says, well, today's episode is a bit different. We're doing a crossover episode, if you like. Tom is in the guest seat, so we get to get our own back, if you like. If you're like me, listen to the episodes and enjoy it. I get to ask the questions now, the ones that you guys want to know. So we'll go through and reflect on Tom's new role, taking a look back at the first season of Liquid, which has given some great insights into corporate liquidity, evolving role of the CFO, and how it relates also to Treasury. Tom, over to you. This is quite nice. I'll sit back now.
a bit strange for me, Mike, but I'm looking forward to it. I think there's a lot of things we can probably cover here and talk about, but certainly unique for me, and I think it's time to jump in.
As we do on my show each week, what we're going to do is go back to the beginning of your career, how you developed, how you then, and we had our pre-podcast call the other day with some really interesting steps that you made throughout your career. What I'd love to do is go through how you first started in finance and then discovered Treasury and technology and everything else. So how did it first start for you?
Yeah, I think I've worked the entire career in the technology space, and I think like many people in that world, I think you find your way into there. I don't know if necessarily it's something that you seek out, at least maybe back 20 years ago, maybe more so today. So it is something like I think a lot of people can say about their career journey, that it is something that was a bit of a chance that you ended up taking. Working in technology is where, I didn't know it at the time, but it's where I needed to be. Trying to use technology to solve business problems is the ideal state. One of the things you and I were talking about, though, is going through university, studying finance, you think you're going to end up as an analyst working investment banking or in banking, that type of world. And there's a whole other world out there on the technology side that I don't think, again, maybe back then they weren't giving any exposure to at a university level. And so really came in at a ground level at a company called FNX and mainly working at risk management platform, front, middle, back office accounting, and just ground level, support level, rising through, different ranks there. I think the unique thing, though, that I didn't realize at the time is I was very fortunate to also have an internship during university working for a bank. And one of the stories that we shared with you was it was with the advent of when banks were offering gift cards and issuing them to people at a retail level. And it was at Christmas time. And just so happened I had neighbors that were working at the bank and needed help in the back office, because the way that worked was you would go into the bank branch, you would get a card, put $50 on it. They would give you a card that would go to a back office, and there would be a process where a team would take that and key that and say, this is for $50 against Mike Richards' bank account. We would debit that out of your bank account and put it on the card. Very arduous, error, potentially a lot of errors that could happen there. And so I did that right amongst the team, and there was a printer that came off with these papers, and you take the papers and key it in. And after a bit of time in the first day, I was like, there's probably something here we could probably look at doing. Just through some simple scripting and the underlying technology, was able to really advance it from the core data that was coming in and putting it into the system, not knowing at the time of 17, that was like a solution, right? I just was maybe just looking for a lazy way out of something. And, and then flash forward 5 years later, then that's what I'm doing, and now 20 years later, it's still what I'm doing. So, in that career journey, though, doing a lot of roles from support to product management to implementation to pre-sales.
And you say you've made those moves, but talk us through the moves, if you like. How did you then, because you joined one company that then was taken over by another, and you weren't exactly always, in the nicest way, you weren't planning it. You didn't say, right, this is something that impressed me on our show before. Some people say, right, 2 years, my next goal is this, my next goal is this. You did it in a different way. You were enjoying your roles, and that was your journey, if you like, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I mean, the original company that I worked in, I've only really worked at 3 companies in my 20 years. The first of which went through a couple of acquisitions, but it is a part of that journey was just putting yourself in position to experience, I think, new things. And it's something that I preach to the people that I get to lead, that I have the privilege of leading. Yeah, it wasn't planned, and it's not to say that I'm not a planner, but at the same time, I think sometimes we force too much in trying to adhere to deadlines or these specific time driven goals that you only have so much control over. There's a lot of environmental impacts and organizational impacts and things like that. And so what I encourage, and it's what I did, and that's why I guess I encourage it, is just make sure, put yourself in the position, challenge yourself, do something that falls outside of your responsibility to make yourself noticed, and then open up that opportunity to take on that next responsibility. And that's really kind of charted my career, and it's worked to date, and it's where I've landed in my current role. I've never asked for a promotion. I've never asked for another job. I've been, I think, granted those experiences, I think, based on those challenges I've placed upon myself.
And as you said, you joined one company, then became part of FIS, but then you joined Kyriba back in 2014. So obviously, 11 years ago now, exactly the same company back then as it is now, isn't it? It hasn't changed. It stood still, and it's exactly it's just like it was back then. No, obviously, joking aside, what's it been like? Yeah, how's it changed?
Yeah, it's been a really, really fun journey. And there's a reason why you work at a company for 11 years. I'm very fortunate for many, many reasons. One of which being that I joined at a really good time, working in North America, coming in at an individual contributor level, right? Being one of two people in North America working in pre-sales at that time. It was at the advent of when we were moving from a very European-focused organization to a truly global operation with an emphasis in North America. And so I was able to ride that wave, of the investments that were being made and the foundation that was really being built at that time. Again, that's just luck. And I think many people, if you don't attribute luck to some of your success, I think that you're probably full of it, because there's certain elements like that I did not have control over. At the same time as well, been very fortunate to have amazing managers along that way as well. Again, that's luck as well. You can't control who's managing you. That have also been a part of that journey. But Kyriba's changed significantly in terms of the overall growth of the company, the growth of the product, and the broader organization. It's been quite fun. And now in those 11 years, or really literally, I think today almost, I think is probably an 11-year anniversary. Now that I think about it. Living in that pre-sales organization for so long, going from an individual contributor to then leading North America, to then taking over the global organization and scaling that in a lot of different areas has been truly the best experience of my career so far, and truly a privilege to be a part of in that journey. Being able to work with 2,108 companies around the world myself. I'm a very diligent, data-driven person, but that has offered me an amazing amount of information of the market, right? When you get to work with that many different organizations in treasury and finance around the world, it gives you broad exposure of what's going on in our space.
And I want to keep this related to treasurers, if you like. So when you joined the group 11 years ago, and we'll come back to you and if you like your journey, because you've recently taken on a new role, so I want to deep dive on that. But just going back, when you joined Kyriba, would it be more focused on cash management? What was the sort of the structure of the group, or what was the coverage, certainly for the company, if you like?
Yeah, no, I think when you look at the growth of the technology itself, when we started, or when I started, it was a very core cash management focused company. One of the things that I think, one of the skill sets that brought me into Kyriba was my experience from the first job we talked about, that experience on the capital markets, investment banking, risk management side of things, which if you remember in 2014, the market was dominated by Reval and Quantum, I would say, probably at that time. And Kyriba did not have those capabilities to do, complex things on the FX side of things and interest rate side of things and such. And I had that experience, and I think that was one of the key things that they were looking at doing. That said, I didn't know anything about corporate treasury. My experience was on risk management. And when I joined, we could barely track a forward contract, quite bluntly at that time. And very, very quickly, we had to make that decision of build by partners so that we could expand our market presence and go up market and try to take that share away from those key, those 800-pound gorillas in the room. And that was a cool thing to be a part of, because that was already in progress as I came on board. Then it kind of hits your hands about a year into my time here. And now we're out there. And I remember there was points in time where I would go out and people would be like, we'd be showing off our capabilities on hedge accounting, and it was pretty basic at the time, some very simple kind of critical terms matching, but it was a step in the right direction. And there was literally, I remember at one point somebody going, "But you're not supposed to have this," and I was like, "What does that mean? What do you mean I'm not supposed to have this?" But yeah, we've gone and grown then from there to being a full liquidity platform. And I think that's one of the areas that our amazing marketing team and our go-to-market sales team are really aggressively out there making sure that that's clear in that market, that this goes far beyond cash. And now it goes beyond just core treasury. When we're talking about working capital, that puts Kyriba in a different class that we are seeing momentum in now. But it is funny to see this in my role being global, the disparity sometimes of that understanding, as you go from one region to the other.
Treasury back in 2014 was very different. There wasn't as much pressure, and also technology was coming in and developing so rapidly that I think even now treasurers sometimes struggle to keep up with it. The small teams and everything else. But how have you seen treasury evolved in that time? What as you say, when you first got in there was, you said, you guys could barely do a full contract. I think some treasurers could barely, because how were they going to account for it? There were ledgers and balances and things. How have you seen it change?
It's obviously changed tremendously. When we look at it, every day there is a new once in a lifetime event that is impacting corporations and then therefore being navigated by the ever important treasury operation. And that obviously, as I look at where prioritization shift, again, working with 2,100 companies over the years, it gives you the ability to kind of track trends of what is important. And those things were pretty well kind of understood. And now you're at a COVID, post-COVID, and now in this economic, geopolitical, world that we live in. It's amazing how much of a bigger focus, and you see it in the data, right? The bigger emphasis on forecasting and planning, and then subsequently tied to that would be like the hedging that goes along with it. Whereas in 2014, that wasn't actually, I would say, the key driver at that time. It was really about visibility. It was really about evolving, on-premise technologies to cloud-based technologies. I would say those were kind of at the forefront, whereas now we've gone through that, right? Now that is the norm, whereas before we were in that transitionary phase. Now it's, okay, what can I do, or what's out there to help me plan better? If I can plan better, can I hedge better, and so on?
And do you think it was like, I was just thinking on what you said there, is it seems like to me that Treasury was a bit more internally focused then about looking after the cash and, looking at that now. And actually, it's a point I sometimes make when people talk about salaries, and treasurers were put in the corner office, look after the cash. Now they're part of the business, they're much more, that's where they're being recognized. But
Absolutely.
Maybe it's the evolution of that as well, that they were internally focused on the balance sheet. Now they're all, okay, what can we do to help the rest of the business? But it sounds like that's linked to the visibility through technology as well.
I think it absolutely is. I mean, when you also look at the evolution of the buying process that I've been a part of, again, 2,000 something times, the growth in terms of who's included and involved in those types of key decisions now has grown from over the past 11 years. You were working at a cash manager level. Now you're working not just within the broader finance organization, but now you see a significant amount of overlap in IT involvement that really wasn't there before, right? Because those decisions sometimes were insulated. They were taken care of by that core treasury team. Now you have this bigger, because of the scaling of the technology, the interconnectivity of the technology, IT's involvement is so much more significant of, how can we leverage this, and how can we interface this information there to or from to help not just what we're doing at a cash level, but to help at a broader finance, FP&A level even, and upward.
And let's go deep dive on you for a moment, and without being, I know it's your show usually, but now I get my own back sort of thing.
Go please.
Yeah, but you're loving it. But the
Not
fact
my
is,
show.
you're in the. It's great being in the driving seat. Usually, I'm just sitting here, thank goodness. But with yourself, you came in at one stage as a person 11 years ago, or whatever. Now, how has your remit sort of grown? Less about the early days, but more bring us up to date, sort of thing. What's happened, and how's that linked in as Kyriba's changed more recently?
Yeah, if you followed along, as I know you have, Mike, but those that listen, Kyriba's continued to evolve, and we always have over these 11 years. We continue to grow at a significant rate and provide more. We provide value to more and more customers, close to 3,000 or something now, and that growth continues to grow 20% year over year. And with that, now we've seen, right, there's a lot of, we've had a lot of evolution within our broader leadership with our new CEO and our new ExCo organization, which I get the privilege to be a part of. And one of the areas that I feel very privileged and I'm very thankful for is I get to work on a platform that has, without any debate, the most amount of R&D, right? We have the most amount of dollars going into our product, the most people behind that product, the most infrastructure on one platform. And now we're at the point in terms of our journey where we have to make sure, and there's so much going on in the market, and there's so much opportunity in terms of how you can build technology differently today than what you could have done just 5 years ago with the advent of AI. We have to make sure that we are prioritizing the right things in relation to what we're doing with our product to meet the demands of what our customers need today, as well as what they're looking to do tomorrow, maybe the stuff that they're not even thinking of. And we have 3,000 customers and you're working in 100 different, we have users in 100 different countries. It's very easy to get distracted with the short-term needs. We have to make sure there's a focus. And in my role, leading product strategy, it's important now that we use data, we use key informations, we use on-the-ground resources to ensure that we're looking at the broader global landscape that Kyriba supports and scaling our technology the way it needs to be scaled. And that's what, my experience will help bring, but also the team we get to work with is also really exciting opportunity.
When you say scaling technology, I'm a treasurer sitting there. Maybe I use Kyriba, maybe I don't, and you're saying, yeah, we're investing in tech, we're doing this. So what? I don't care. I've got a treasury to run. Yeah. Why is that important to me as a treasurer? Answer the so what question, if you like. So why does that make a difference to treasurers' lives? Or maybe not even treasurers, CFO, who doesn't have a treasurer, you've got, a variety of clients, down to I'm a treasury analyst listening today. It's interesting. So what? Talk us through those levels.
Well, when you look at the various studies usually done by the Big Four, you can see the evolution and the focus of the investments that are now being made in technologies, right, from the CFO down and how it can impact it. When you look at what Kyriba has done and in that evolution, we went from a solution that was better supporting and automating things, say, for that cash manager level, and have evolved now with the capabilities. When you talk about risk, now you're impacting the risk management part of your operation. When you talk about planning, now you're up at a group treasurer level and doing things that they need to do. When you're operating in-house bankings and the complexity there, of course, now you're at that group treasurer level. And now when you're looking at working capital optimizations and so on, now you're speaking to the CFO. And so when you're looking at the opportunity to kind of where we can leverage technology that's out there, there are many options, right? And there's almost too many, and there's new ones popping up by the day. Treasuries, treasurers, and CFOs are able to look at broader offerings. How can we look at a single platform that can help alleviate pain in multiple areas? And when you look at the technology side of things in terms of how we invest, this gives us the ability to make sure that we're prioritizing the investments to meet the needs of those other levels within the CFO organization. And that's what we're doing. We're balancing that investment between our various product streams.
So going back to a treasury professional, say mid-level, senior level, what should their checklist be? If you like, how would you guide them? And it's not a sales pitch again. It's more, what should they? There's so much noise out there. There are so many different technologies, and every other day there's a new AI cash management tool that's coming in to come and eat Kyriba's breakfast. We know this. That aside, from the competitive landscape, it's more, what should a treasurer be looking at? Is it visibility of cash and everything else, or how do you, they're listening today, they're writing in their notebook, maybe they're traveling on the train. What should they put in it?
No, we're very cognizant of the market, and we're able to achieve our results and put ourselves in a leadership position, and obviously are looking to maintain that quite bluntly. And you're right, there's new incumbents and new things that you're seeing in new technologies, because again, part of that is correlated with the ability to leverage AI to help scale and build things. But that said, one of the things that we always are ensuring is we engage with a customer that might be looking at a targeted problem. We also make sure we're also looking at, well, what other things can we also resolve? When you're out there trying to resolve a problem, look to your left, look to your right, maybe look up to your boss and say, what are the other things that we're also trying to achieve in the correlation they're in? The reality of the situation is Treasury doesn't do anything in isolation. It's the heart of liquidity. So you're not just going to, fix what is going on at the one artery that's in your arm. You want to fix what's actually going at the heart. And so making sure that you don't put yourself in position to solve a temporary problem or a short-term problem today with a focused niche solution that you then have to layer on multiple other niche solutions, which then becomes an IT headache, a vendor headache, a procurement headache, and all of that other stuff that we don't want to put our customers in a position to do. How best can we support you? How can we broaden that, offering that we have and provide more value?
Yeah, rather than having all the bolt-ons, just, this actually does solve a lot of those solutions and problems.
Well, yeah, it does. And I think it's hard, you don't think about that. And I totally get it. We all have our own jobs and things that we're all trying to solve for. And there's solutions out there for everything. But then when you think about it is how am I going to architect this when I actually get to my total target operating model? That's what you have to look at. What is the target operating model within the enterprise itself that we're trying to achieve? And where can the technologies fit into play? And things you don't think about that are critically important. And this is, again, in 10 years of doing pre-sales at Kyriba and thousands of meetings and demos and so on, is how are you going to orchestrate metadata, right, between multiple platforms? You have a system that's used for cash management. You have a different system that's used for forecasting and a different system that's used for payments. All of those need the same information. They all need your entity structure. They all need your banking structure. They all need your bank account structure. They all need the same rates. It can be easier said than done to make sure those things are orchestrated with using the same level of information. If you're acquiring companies or if you're opening up, you have to make sure that's done 3x or 4x across those platforms. It's an operational headache, and it's an auditing headache as well.
You touched on AI a little bit. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much, and we're going to skate over it a little bit, because what I was thinking is, what should treasury and finance leaders be doing to prepare for the future? What are they think? What should be on their radar? It was great where you talked about the treasurer being at the heart of things and looking up and down and side to side, and with the CFO and everything else. But what should they be thinking about?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Maybe a different session. I know the AI topic can get a bit long in the tooth there, right? But it's obviously the key topic that you hear in the market, and you see every single day. You go on LinkedIn and there's a new technology touting their recent thing. But it's been, from my point of view, this has been years of that type of messaging that we've seen in the market. But what you haven't seen is adoption. When you work in technology and you've done it as long as I have, and you've done it across, I don't know, 5 or 6 different products on my end. There's a marketing messaging, and then the product that backs it up. And the whole question is always, what is the gap between the two, right? In terms of what does the marketing say, and can the product back up what it actually does? And AI, I think that divergence that you see out in the market is quite staggering when you actually dissect it, and what is going on across any technology. When you're talking about AI and you're looking at it from the point of view of a treasurer or CFO, the one thing, an important thing that you have to understand, and this is one of the learning gaps that I think all of us are going through in our careers now as we're working through this, is AI is useless without data. And the way I always explain it is, if you read 1,000 books and if I read one book, you inherently have more knowledge and more information to operate off of than I do. So when you're looking at how can we leverage AI in order to do what we needed to do within our organization, there's 2 key things. Does it have the necessary information? Is it right? And 2, can I adapt it to what we ultimately need to be? Those are the 2 things where I think that why we haven't seen the broader adoption of it is because, sure, you can go ahead and I can do it. I could build something related to AI over the weekend. I have. But it's not sitting on a significant amount of information, a comprehensive set of information that we want to use in order to make informed decisions or take action off of. We better make sure that it has the right information to do it. Second, is it already done? Is it already built and inflexible to be adapted? The one thing I am certainly sure of, again, working with 2,108 different companies, is that every single company is different. And so there isn't this one universal thing that you can give and say, this works for 2,108 of you. You have to have the adaptability. And if it does have it, who can do it? Is it an IT level adaptation, or is it a business level adaptation that you can make? These are the types of things that we're investing in to ensure that we're not just putting out messaging that says we have AI capabilities, but making sure that it's being adopted and providing value.
Love it. And it's funny you said about the 2,108. I've done, I've not done that many. Well, I've probably spoken to that many treasurers and treasury over my career,
sure.
but I've done the podcast every week now for 6.5 years. And people ask me, they say, how can you keep going? And I said, look, as you've just said, every treasurer is, well, actually, it's not true. Every treasurer is exactly the same. They have exactly the same title. I've said, look, everyone around here, I'll be at a conference, AFP or whatever. They've all got the same title, right? They do exactly the same job. They're like, well, no. I said, no, because they're debt laden, they're cash rich, they're centralized, decentralized. Those guys love technology. Those guys, not so sure. So, and that's what I've done. So 375 podcasts later, and it shows no, because everyone's story is different, and that's where. So there is a point to this question, because see, I get a little bit. Your story, if you like, if someone listening today and they're a finance professional thinking about treasury technology maybe as a career, what piece of advice from your career story so far would you give to them? Something
I would say, like, there's things that you hear or experience in your life, perhaps, that you then point to and you go, oh, that almost reaffirms or actually provides verbiage or solidification to what I do, what I believe, but you never had anything for it. And I had this moment this year at our sales kickoff, our SMKR, our sales marketing kickoff that we had in Barcelona, which was fantastic. Hundreds of people. And one of our board members, his name's Mike Eberhardt, and he's one of the most humble and most knowledgeable, experienced persons that I've had the chance to work with. He was on stage, and I think somebody asked a question along those lines about career advice. And Kyriba is great because now we have we have a big company with 1,000 employees, which means that we have a broad array of tenure and experience for people that are post-grad to people like myself that are 20 years or even further, right? And so one of the things that he said, and I was like, that was me. That's what I did, is he said, just say yes, right? Take the opportunity that you're presented. And I believe in that. Again, as I said, I have never been the one that said, I want to do this job. When I moved from product management to pre-sales, I was asked to do it at the time in my prior company. When I've moved now from pre-sales to product strategy, I was asked to do that and privileged to be able to do that. You say yes, you take the challenge, put yourself in that position. I always say, try something new, step out of your comfort zone and do that. But you have to say yes. And the other thing that he had said as well was try not to be too overcalculated. And that's what I've seen, and what I try to make sure people and coach people and help them in their career journey, and those that I've had the privilege to manage, is don't put undue pressure to try to adhere to these timelines that if I do this and then in 2 years I'll make senior and then in 4 years I'll make principal. Again, like we talked about, there's a lot of other factors at play there. And don't put that pressure, because when you do that, then what you end up doing is you perhaps end up leaving a situation that was actually better for you to go and get that other thing that you think that you want, and you're putting yourself in the wrong position. Maybe it's the wrong organization. Maybe it's with the wrong leadership. Instead, be transparent, right? Be communicative with your leadership. Put yourself in a place of trust, and that's what it comes down to. Trust in the organization, trust in your leader, and be open in communication, and that should evolve. And you have to be patient. You cannot think that this is not a world, and it's not real world, that you get a promotion every quarter or every year, right? You have to spend time, you have to learn, you have to fail, and then you have to put yourself out there, like we said, and put yourself in those experiences. And then the opportunity will open up. And I guarantee it.
And it's very interesting. You when we had our pre-podcast the other day, and that was one of the things that came to me, that lots of my guests, I talk about them being curious treasurers. That's what we could call any ebook about it, the curious treasurer. But actually, I think what you've just said, and this is the thing you said the other day about having a measure, some patience. Don't always be right. I've got to be there in 2 years. Got to be there in. I'm like, wow, okay. And it was just, there was different advice, and it's been a while since I've heard something different. So where did that come from? Is it just something you've always believed in, or?
I guess, it's one of those things. I guess it's just one of those, I think your early years of your career are the most formative in terms of how your rest of your career will go. And again, there's part luck, and there's also your own skill sets that you have. Again, I was in a position where it was a very fluid organization, which gave opportunities to others if you were worthy of that, and also if you had the ability to do it. So I think it just stems from that, and being dynamic, and being moved around and working around the globe at a very young age and taking on different responsibilities. It just inherently then leaderships and things can see that, and they can coach you along. Again, if they are the right leaders, if they're good leaders, and if they're trustworthy ones, they're going to bring you along. They're going to keep throwing opportunities at you, and I guarantee the career progression that you're seeking will come. Go for what you want, and you'll get what you need. I actually think that is something that I truly adhere to.
Cool. And from one podcaster to another, which is quite nice, and it finally get me a bit. You've been hosting Liquid How CFOs Outperform for the past year or so. What have you learned? I was going to say, what have you learned about podcasting? But what have you also learned in addition to podcasting from your guests and everything else? But certainly, I'll just answer my bit. My first year, I learned to shut up more and ask one question, not ask three. I'm asking three now, but what I mean is, I was so keen and really enjoyed it, and I become better and better, and I become a better treasury recruiter, to be honest. So there were my learnings, and I can't even listen to my first podcast anymore. I'm like, shut up, Richard. With you, what did you learn? What have you found?
Yeah, it's one of those things. That's a great example of just saying yes. One thing, it's quite easy because it's a conversation, which is cool, right? Like you said, you got to have a small mouth, big ears kind of thing, especially as you're hosting, which is sometimes trouble. Maybe not as easier said than done for maybe people like you or I, but it's quite easy. It's easier than I thought it was going to be. It's quite fun as well. You get to really meet some cool people. Our company does a great job of lining great host or co-host and interviewees like yourself and amongst other CFOs that we've had the privilege of coming on. The themes are there, right? The focus is the same. The things that are keeping people up at night are the same. So I guess it's good to see that there's universal applicability there, but it's one of the things that certainly I've observed in the shows we've had so far.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to take you up on one point there. Well, let's just go back to where you said podcasting is easy. We're going to have to cut that out in the post-edit because I keep telling people how difficult it is, the effort I make, right? And you've just completely... Yeah. Just like
dismantled your
this
apologies.
Is like the magic circle, right? You've just given away our secrets.
Yeah,
thanks.
I will say we have a great team behind us that is instrumental.
There you go.
And I just have to get on the mic and have the conversation, and we have a great team. So I will say I'm speaking only on behalf of my experience, not all of the other stuff that goes into building what is really a great product, an impressively great product.
I think you've destroyed all those illusions now already. I think it's gone. Well, basically everybody else does the hard work is what we're saying. But anyway, let's move on from that. But as you say there, I mean, podcasting is fun. I've just loved talking to, treasurers. And as I alluded to, it's made me a better recruiter. I've had all these conversations. I thought it was pretty good 6-7 years ago. Now I really understand their pain points and things. For you, understanding your clients before we get to the end of the show, I know it's sort of, has it had a similar impact for you? Have you felt that?
Yeah, because you have these opportunities to be in front of really senior finance leaders and then get off a call and then immediately perhaps go and talk to an existing customer. And it might just be the cash manager. That might be, they might not be in the same company, but there are many levels underneath of their CFO, for example. It gives you really good perspective, again, and understanding and empathy of how all of the chain of liquidity works from the CFO down to the lowest level of their organization, as everybody's striving and kind of a part of the same mission. So it's one of those really one of those things I valued in my prior role that I look to continue on in my new role, which is ensuring that we're wide ears to all parties, because we know the impact and the value that we can bring as a technology partner goes up and down that organizational chart. And it's important that we are listening to the needs of what the cash manager might need today and what they're evolving to tomorrow, all the way up to what the CFO is trying to wade through today and whatever, once in a lifetime event is going on that's impacting their life today and what's coming down the road tomorrow. It's really, really, really interesting to reconcile that. And
you say this new role, so you've changed roles, but also I wanted to ask you about, any standout moments. So you've done the podcast, your roles changed as well, which I want you to tell me about.
So I'm Senior Vice President of our Global Solutions and Product Strategy.
What does that mean in English?
Yeah, it's a lot of words, right? Yeah. So what we look to do is to really be the voice of the market, the voice of the customer. What we have the opportunity to do, and again, we are in a amazing spot to be able to do this just because of the investment we have, the team we have, and the markets we're in. We have to make sure that we're optimizing our R&D of our product to meet, again, the demands of today and what's coming down the road tomorrow. And I think now and where we are in technology evolution. Take finance, take treasury out of it. The way technology is evolving, this is a critical point. No matter what size technology company you have, there's a finite amount of R&D. There's a finite amount of resources. That's a fact that any company can do and choose to do. You have to optimize the use of that. And again, we have a great arsenal behind us and how we can do that in terms of the investment that we have. But we are in a chasm, and we talked about this before. And it goes back to the Henry Ford saying, right? If you ask people what they wanted, they would say faster horses. We don't want to alleviate that. We need to build faster horses, and we have the ability to do that, and we certainly are. But at the same time, we're bringing a car to the market, and we don't want to scare people off, because I get it. People might not want to jump off the horse and get behind that engine and drive, but they're going to. And we can't abandon one side or the other. And we are very, very fortunate to be able to put the investment in to the needs of today, which are faster horses, while also bringing to market the automobile in this space and really revolutionize what's going on with AI and its application to this world of treasury and finance.
Yeah. And any, again, linking that in, you've had this great experience through the podcast so far. Any particular standout moments that are perhaps linked into that as well?
The AI topic, it does come up a lot. The evolution of technology does come up a lot, but there is that common theme of apprehension and learning and experience that we're all going to go through, and we want to go through that together. We cannot drop something out of the sky and not have the experience behind it. So in terms of how have been evolving our technology on our side, we're bringing our customers along on that journey. And using the podcast, it's also just validating to have these arbitrary, perhaps conversations with people that to see their point of view, and it reconciles back to what our point of view is, which is affirming, which is good to see that we are doing what we should be doing, and going to do it in a more impactful way in the market.
Cool. I'm not going to get to my questions because I've got my wrap up, my show, which we're going to do with you, which is great.
That's awesome.
Get to switch it around, but you ask your guests. I'm just looking at the notes here that about their favorite cities, best places to eat, and then best book. So we'll start with those favorite cities.
Oh, it's a tough one. Well, yeah. So London used to just be my town. Over the years, and I think it's just because I go there so often. Paris has my heart, but also Sydney's a cool town because Sydney blends this old European side with a beach, which is awesome. It's like a perfect world for me. It's just so far. But yeah, I would say Paris, Sydney.
Okay. And best places to eat?
Best places to eat. So I'm a Philadelphia guy. I moved around a bit, but I live in Philadelphia now. Philadelphia has some amazing restaurants. I would say in Philadelphia, there's a famous restaurant called Zahav, which is an Israeli restaurant, which is extremely hard to get into, but just absolutely phenomenal food. Would encourage anybody to try to go there. I think they're also on Gold Belly for those in the U.S. that are listening. Would encourage you to try to order that. This isn't sponsored by Zahav.
We'll go there for it. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Happy to.
And then best book you read, and anything that stuck out with you?
Yeah, that's a big one. I'm a big believer, actually. I tell this to people. If I'm working with somebody new, I always ask what their favorite book is. I think that tells a lot about somebody, especially if they're further along in their career, their education. They're kind of further removed. I think books actually tell a good story about people. I have a few. I would say the pinnacle one is Start With Why, which is by Simon Sinek. I think that's a critical one. There's another one, Leadership and Self-Deception. If I were to pick two books, it's those two things that I think best describe my favorite books, ones that I've read multiple times, and those that would best describe the way in which I operate and look at the world we are in.
I love these questions. That's cool. But I'd still get to finish with my question. So
please,
we'll put your LinkedIn details in the show notes. Most people will probably already be connected to you, but otherwise you're going to have a flood of other people listening because it's a crossover show and everything else. But I ask people for their final takeaways each and every week. With yourself, what takeaways? And that's more if you're an early practitioner, maybe developing your career. You've touched on some of them there, but the wrap-ups, mid-level or senior. What advice would you give those guys?
Yeah, if you don't mind, and I'll give it from two lenses. I'll do it from the career perspective and then from the technology perspective. Yeah, the career perspective, it's summarizing what we talked about being patient, putting yourself in the right position, get a mentor, right? Identify who that is. Whether they're within your organization or not, stay with them. Again, I've been so fortunate through my entire career to have amazing managers, those that I could call anytime I want to get their input or feedback. And I'm very fortunate about that. Put yourself in those positions, identify those people, and put trust in them, as I talk about, right? You cannot control everything. There are so many other factors at play that will impact how your career progresses. Ride a wave, put yourself on that best wave, put yourself underneath the best leadership. I can't emphasize that enough in terms of that patience and saying yes. Try something new. Opportunity is not going to be handed to you. You have to just put yourself in that position, get noticed, and opportunities will follow. On the technology side, there's a lot going on. It's overwhelming. I know, I think, especially for Treasury people, there's so many names out there. There's so much marketing, messaging, and things like that we see out in the market, and it can be quite inundating. You can definitely get paralysis by analysis. And I think for Treasury people, like bluntly, that's how we are. We are analytical. We are logic driven. We are compliance rule followers, right? So where to start? That's important. Engage yourself in the network, right? Reach out to the right trusted partners and the trusted vendors. Get their input. Do the learning that you need to do in order to understand what's out there, where things are, and where they might not be. And then also, you have to make sure that you're doing the proper due diligence, making sure that you're looking at the things that you cannot see, especially when you look at artificial intelligence. Again, because that is going to continue to be, or will be, the primary focus as we look at technology and its evolution. The security behind the data and the leveraging of the different AI models is incredibly important to ensure that you're sensitive finance information is not being shared where it should not be shared and being learned by things that should not be learned. These I don't think is something yet that is ingrained in us as Treasury people that we just instinctively know about, but it soon will be a part of our innate compliance-driven world. That needs to be done today, though.
But coming back to your piece of career advice, I think it's brilliant that it reminds me of that phrase, you're not a rock, you can move.
Yeah.
This and exactly, so just, and yours, you embodied it with saying, just say yes. If the opportunity comes along, you and I talked about it before, so just be open to it.
Say yes. Yeah, why not? Especially if you're younger in your career, right? Take that trip, go implement, like I did, go do the implementation in Bangkok and Papua New Guinea and Cyprus. And, it might be hard, you might long days, but you're young, you can do it. And it opens up so many opportunities. I'm so thankful and grateful I've had that opportunity to do it.
Well, Tom, amazing to be guest. I don't know if I'm guest on your show or whether I'm just a host.
What about co-guest? How about co-guest?
Co-host. Just co-host for a week. There you go. That'll do. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed doing this. If people have enjoyed listening to this English voice, go to treasurycareercorner.com. You'll get to hear me talk to lots of other treasurers and, also talk to amazing folks like Tom. So thank you very much, sir, for letting me occupy this other side of the microphone for a week.
Pleasure's been mine. It's easy. This was easy for me, by the way, as just being the interviewee here. So I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you so much. And again, for those that want to listen to my Philadelphia voice, please tune in to Liquid wherever you subscribe. I'm the host, Tom Gavigan, and this is Liquid, how CFOs outperform.